Happy Wednesday, folks. Actually, let me just go on a tangent here for 1 sec because I think we commented on it, Russ, during the World Junior, and we noticed all these old Geico commercials.
Yeah.
And I saw on NHL Network basically them, I think it's like selling like a Geico commercial DVD with like all the old commercials or what's the best Geico classic commercial, and the Hump Day one was on there with the camel.
I'm not buying anything with commercials. Why am I doing that?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you could watch them on YouTube, so
Right.
maybe it was just that was sort of a gimmick in terms of a commercial. All I know is
maybe that's probably what it was.
Yeah, all I know is I mean, how many times have we seen the caveman on the walking path at the airport, and he goes by, the stupid Geico ad, and he goes back and shakes it. I mean, that thing's 20 years old.
I know. I met the caveman once at one of the All-Star games. It was, I looked at him, he looked at me. I didn't really have much to say. It was just
no, was he in makeup?
Yeah, he was in makeup and he was in the locker room. I think it was the All-Star game. It was pretty funny, actually. But it was just weird. It was weird. All right, so our big pre-show topic. This was something that was unveiled about a week ago, and we couldn't do it because we were doing something else. But this is the big Genesis debate. This is Trick of the Tail versus Wind and the Wuthering. And I had already given my answer that day, so we'll let you go first because somebody might already know my answer.
Now, the last one we did, wasn't it Selling England by the Pound versus Trick of the Tail, or was it?
No. It was one of the other older ones. I think it was Foxtrot or something. I don't think.
Yeah, no, and I said Foxtrot because of the supper's ready. Yeah. To me, it's easily Trick of the Tail.
Okay, it's not. It's Wind and the Wuthering, and I'll give you a couple good reasons. Okay. First thing is, on the writing credits, Trick of the Tail had much less Hackett in it than Wind and the Wuthering. So that's something to me that affected the album a little bit.
And I love Hackett, but Steve Hackett, the guitar player. But the funny thing is that most of the writing on Wind and Wuthering was Tony Banks. And Tony Banks...
Hackett's got a lot more collaboration credit than on Trick of the Tail, actually.
Well, no, right. I mean, he basically wrote Blood on the Rooftops, which is the best, I think the best song or one of the best songs on that album.
It's not my favorite, but it is great.
Yeah, but no, I mean, what you have to respect is Trick of the Tail. This is the first album coming out after Gabriel leaves, the first album with Phil Collins as the lead vocalist. He wasn't comfortable in that position. That they had I'll compare it to this. I went going to see Stone Temple Pilots last year, and it's the entire band except obviously Scott Weiland passed away. You had the same band, you had the same writers, but you had a different voice. And that was what Genesis was going on in 1975. Nobody knew that they would, even Phil Collins said, I think we should do instrumentals, and they thought he was insane.
Right. All right.
So I mean, to me, Trick of the Tail. I mean, Robbery, Assault and Battery, Squonk.
Hold on there. Now, here's where I'm gonna. Squonk is great. Ripples is great. Robbery, Assault and Battery is the illegal alien of its time.
Oh no,
it is.
It's a much better instrument. Much better instrumentation. Much better.
Actually, the instrumentation on Wind and the Wuthering, the haunting melodies are so much better on that than they are on Trick of the Tail. And, I saw a song like 11th Earl Lamar probably never got played in concert. It's a really good song.
Well, it did, but it was just long. I mean, One for the Vine got played in concert. So, I mean, we're probably talking stuff that people don't even understand.
Some do. There's some in the chat room that do. But the outtakes, songs that didn't make Wind and the Wuthering, they're much more than Trick of the Tail, too. And that's something where people have been more interested in those over the years. I don't know. I just think, and maybe it's what you said, it's the different headspace where they were in their writing and this new configuration of the band. But I don't know. I like Your Own Special Way. I like 11th Earl Lamar. I love Blood on the Rooftops. I love Ripples. Robbery, Assault and Battery is horrible though.
I think this Dance in a Volcano and
Dance in a Volcano is tremendous. I mean,
I know that Collins put sort of this Cockney accent on robbery, assault, and battery.
And that's what made it the illegal alien of its time.
Yeah, but they always try to put themselves in character. So I never.
But that's okay. So like the what's the song about Tom and Jerry on Wind and Wuthering?
All in a Mouse's Night. Which is
All in a Mouse's Night, which is phenomenal, and that's about Tom and Jerry, the cartoon.
This is asking me to choose between those two is to ask me to choose between like Jessica Chastain and Nicole Kidman. It's tough.
I do.
Yeah, so it's like it's really tough. I mean, I like redheads, and they're both gorgeous.
No, I love both albums. It's very, very, very close. Although, and here's the interesting thing: by the time I knew about these albums when I was buying them, probably as like a 15, 16-year-old, they were cutouts, both of them.
They were cutouts. What do you mean?
You don't know what the cutout? All right. So back in the day, if you walked in the record store and they carved out a niche in the upper corner of the album, it was on sale. That was the denotation that it was a cutout.
Yeah. Oh no, I didn't realize because I stole most of my LPs.
Oh, okay. But I'm saying it definitely was a cutout. I'm pretty sure Trick of the Tail was, and I know for sure and then there were 3 was.
Yeah, because they were trying to move these move the older ones out because I used to know somebody who worked at a record store and it's like the record that moves is the newest record. So like if we're talking like 1980s, Duke is the one that's the full price, and everything else except maybe Lamb Lies Down on Broadway because it was a double album was marked down because it was Gabriel or it was older. That's what they did. Anyway.
I do want to mention one other thing for pre-show and then we're done. Then we'll open it up. Lord Oberman reminded me about the open mic situation with Jim Jackson and Keith Jones that was brought to light. It's nothing bad. They were actually just shooting it like a lot of people do, talking about the game when they're not on the air. It wasn't great audio. So somebody really went out of their way to make sure this happened, which I think is terrible. And local radio host Mike Missinelli decided he thought he should bring it up on the radio because he thought it was a good idea. I think it's all low class. I don't know why, people are talking about it. People just want to be negative, I guess, and really are happy when people could be in trouble. It just seems that way. And they really didn't say anything to get themselves in trouble. I'm sure Comcast wasn't thrilled, but they were just saying what they saw, just not what's suitable for on the air. Like, they said something about Dale Weiss not being very good. Hey, you know what?
He isn't very good.
That is true. So I think it's much ado about nothing, but I don't like the fact that it has been highly reported on. I think that's awful.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's something that made Deadspin. That's something that they always love the controversy. They always love that when people embarrass themselves.
Look, the first time somebody talks, it'll be on Deadspin. I get it.
Right. So
whenever that is, Gritty, what will happen is the guy or girl who plays Gritty will have the head half on, half off somewhere and say something, and someone will be recording it on their phone, and then that'll be the trash on Deadspin.
And I could give 2 what's less. But anyway. All right. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Wednesday, January 9th, 2019.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Agello. And this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. There were a number of games last night. We'll touch on some of them and talk about some other issues in the league. Take some questions later in the show. So when we get to that point, start putting the questions in the chat room. Russ, start with a couple games here. First one, Bruins take a 3-0 lead after one skate to a 4-0 shutout victory over your Minnesota Wild. It's the 5th win in a row for the Bruins. They're now 2 points behind the Maple Leafs for second place. The Leafs have a game in hand. Yeah. The 2 teams play on Saturday in Toronto. I mean, honestly, this is the worst nightmare for Toronto, but I will focus on Boston. Out without Bergeron, without Chara, now obviously without McAvoy for most of the season. and they're right in the race. Now nobody's going to catch Tampa for first place, but best case scenario for them is to finish second and get home ice advantage in the playoffs. And with all the things that they've weathered in the first half, they're right there.
Right. The Bruins need to fast forward to April in the playoffs healthy. Yeah. That's their whole season. I mean, we could talk about the Bruins from now until forever. And if Chara and Bergeron aren't in the playoffs, they're not going very far. If they are, they're going pretty far this year. There's no question. They're getting they're getting a lot of great minutes out of bottom six guys like Corrali, and that's helping them a lot. Their defense is really solid, and that's why I don't think they're going to do much to it, because right now they're in a good spot, and we pointed out the other day that they have pretty good depth there. This does pose a problem for the Leafs. Yesterday was a stay lock day, so he was due to lose. He's been pretty hot this year. Dubnyk's actually been winning. I think he's won like 3 in a row. So the Wild are in the playoff hunt. They're right now. They're in it. Well, I don't know. I think even after loss, I think they are in it because they had.
Yeah, I'm looking at the standings right now. We'll talk about it after we talk there.
Yeah, because they had games in hand. So right. I'm not worried about it, either from the Minnesota perspective. But I can't say that, Boston's going to get to the Stanley Cup yet, because it's always been injuries that derails this team.
Yeah, and there's been some rumors about Nino Niederreiter and them making some changes, and obviously the loss of Dumba for 3 months is really going to hurt them. Yep. I mean, Minnesota right now, they're in the playoffs by their fingernails. They're at 45 right now. The third place in the Central is Dallas at 50, and then you have Colorado at 48, Minnesota at 45, Anaheim at 45, Vancouver at 44, and Edmonton at 43. So you really, unlike the East, where there's a gap of anywhere from 6 to 10 points between 9th place and 10th place, everything is really stacked in the West, and that might contribute to teams not tanking, but not selling at the deadline. They may hold on because they think they have a chance.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I did watch Tampa last night. Let's talk about them for a minute. Let's talk about that game, because that is a game, and again, Torts was wearing like what I'm wearing under the jacket again. There doesn't seem to be a plan for this. I think just when Torts is chilly, he puts it on. Like, he's getting a little older, and I think when he's in a rink that's a little chilly, Torts puts on like the Columbia pullover, and so I always giggle now when he has that on. But he was not happy with his team's play, and I don't blame him. And it wasn't Bob. The defensive breakdowns in front of him were great. The offense for Tampa was just too much. And here's the most underrated part about Tampa and this game. Tampa's defense was really good. They were rock solid. They were keeping the Blue Jackets out of high-scoring chances. They neutralized them. And that's got to be a scary thing for the NHL and other teams, because if Tampa can all of a sudden neutralize teams with their defense, you are in trouble, and they could go all the way if they do that, because they're going to have good goaltending. They're going to have scoring. I think I saw Stamkos has 16 goals in his last 17 games.
Yeah.
He, again, probably the most underrated of the superstar players in the game because of where he plays. We don't really think about him on a daily basis or talk about him on a daily basis, but he is great. And right now, that team is humming, man. Kucherov is one of the best players in the league. You still have Stamkos. Even Dan Girardi played well. Like, if they're getting good play out of Girardi and Coburn, this could really be something for them.
Yeah, I mean, I watched a little bit of that game last night, and they scored their first and second goal late in the first period within like 40 seconds of each other. And after that, I mean, I didn't see Columbus really put up much of a fight. So I mean, I think Columbus is a playoff team, and that's the thing, is that Tampa Bay went through them without much trouble. And if you look at other teams, when they play teams like Columbus, usually they give them a bit of trouble. So the way that they handled them so deftly, makes me think, it reinforces my point that right now Tampa is a step above everybody else.
And that's why I probably do trade Panarin, because I see that game. And I know I'm going to be in the playoffs, so I'm going to need Bob. I can't put Korpisalo in the playoffs because then I'm definitely getting eliminated. Bob could steal a playoff series for me. It is entirely possible. Mm-hmm. But this makes me want to trade Panarin because, again, that game yesterday, if I play them in a series, you're probably losing in 5 anyhow. You
Well,
might get.
that's the thing. It's like, okay, first of all, when has Bob ever come up big in the playoffs?
No, but he might. But he might.
He might, but I'm just saying
Yeah.
you have to base what you do on what you know. And what you know about Bobrovsky is that he's never come up big in the playoffs. Never. Also, your first round matchup, if you're the Blue Jackets and you're looking at this from the point of view of Jarmo Kekalainen, you're either playing Washington or you're playing Pittsburgh. They're the underdog in either of those matches. So in that instance, I definitely would shop Panarin. Now, I know that Elliot Friedman reported that there is going to be some sort of meeting between Panarin, his representative, and Kekalainen to sort of get their ducks in a row to know what they're going to do. But, and I know that the point was made, even if Columbus decides or Panarin tells them that he's not going to re-sign there, that doesn't mean that Columbus may not keep him because they may think they have an opportunity. But honestly, I look at Columbus this year like I looked at Toronto last year. I think it's dumb to make like additions in terms of deals, because I think that, unless you can bring in a franchise player, I don't think you're getting by Pittsburgh or Washington. And if that's the case, then why wouldn't you sell the players that you can get a lot for and maybe make your retooling a quicker turnaround than if you let Panarin walk for nothing and he goes someplace else and then you're left without a star forward.
Yeah,
so
I think that's the way they're going to go.
Now, speaking of the Penguins, they cleaned the clock of the Florida Panthers 5-1.
I watched about a minute and a half of that one. That was so of a mismatch, so much of a mismatch, it wasn't even funny.
And in that instance, the thing is, we were about, I would say 4 or 5 weeks ago saying, it may be over for the Penguins.
I never did.
I know you didn't, but people were saying it.
I know.
Especially when Murray was out and Murray was struggling, and they bring up Jari, and their defense isn't playing well, and all of a sudden it's just everything's falling into place. And Murray's won, I think they said 8 games in a row.
Straight,
yeah. So I mean, and that Rutherford will probably make another tinkering move or another move to add something before the deadline. I mean, Russ, I think we're back to that second round matchup, Washington-Pittsburgh, just being a knockdown, drag out, heavyweight bout.
Yeah, I think Murray's finally straight in his head. I think it took him a while to get straightened out that way. He straightened out physically. That's helped. Like we said early in the year, people were ripping Mike Sullivan, but the week that I spent in Pittsburgh seeing Mike Sullivan at every practice while I was watching USHL games, that's why I scoffed at people saying, no, this team is still with him. They're not tuning him out. That's not the issue. The issue was they had a ton of injuries, and you were expecting Casey DeSmith to do something, which is crazy, but he actually did okay.
Yeah, he stabilized them.
Yeah, and they got through everything. For the Jack Johnson trade, it's helped stabilize him too. He's not having a great year,
no,
but he's helping because he's at least a decent defender. And he's a decent physical guy. And so, right now, we all – and it's funny because, like, someone says they have 9 defensemen and a lot of them are bottom pairing. Yes, that's true. But we know by the time the playoffs start, 2 of those guys will be hurt. It's just the way it's been for Pittsburgh. So they might still even get more depth there because I don't know if they're ever going to be sold that when they go into the playoffs, they're going to have a full defense core. But as long as the key cogs on offense are safe – Brian Rust had another 2 goals. I know you love when I bring that up. He's getting more of a role now on this team. Like he had less of a role, with Sheary there and everything else. And Rust was sort of like that extra guy. Now he's getting to step up more. So for as long as they have guys stepping up, Pittsburgh will be right in the hunt. They will.
A game I watched more than a few minutes of and was a little surprised at the ease that the Sabres were scoring on the Devils and opening up a lead on them without Jack Eichel.
I wasn't surprised because it was Keith Kincaid in net.
Well, and that was the thing. It's like, I mean, I was visiting a friend at a local sports bar, and we're watching this game, and we're sitting next to somebody, and the guy is making a commentary on how bad Kincaid was, and I says, well, that's the guy who got them in the playoffs last year, that carried them the last 25 games of the year. And he's like, really? And he was surprised. And I'm like, well, he's not the same goalie, and he clearly isn't, because I mean, like CJ Smith and Lawrence Pilot and Jake McCabe, it was all these guys who don't normally score goals, and there was a couple. I think it was 2 shorthanded goals.
Yeah, and he let up 1 bleeder that I saw, and but again, I think Keith Kincaid was overused last year, and it spilled into this season now, and he can't get it back. This is, this version of Keith Kincaid is nowhere near as effective as last year's version, and so this is something I'm telling you people need to watch, is the goalie usage on New Jersey. But getting past that, their defense stunk. I mean, everybody was getting in. They were getting 2-on-1s. I mean, Jack Eichel didn't play, and you wouldn't have known it. Jeff Skinner pretty much did whatever he wanted out there. Nobody could defend him. This is a bad Devils team. Like, this is a team that was totally overestimated in the offseason, what they might be, and now it's really hard to even watch them. Like, they're that bad. And Blake Coleman is one of their better players.
Pickles.
And that's crazy.
Pickle juice.
They're in a bad spot.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Devils are. I mean, it appears to be in line for another top 5 pick. Sabres right now, I mean, they're in the thick of it in that Eastern Conference playoff race. I mean, right now it appears maybe 9, maybe 10 with Carolina sort of climbing back into it a little bit at 45 points. Sabres are at 52. They're 2 points behind the Bruins. They hold the first wild card. Montreal's at 51. Yeah. Islanders are at 50, and then Carolina's at 45, and then it drops off. Then it drops off the table. It's so basically 9, maybe 10 in the East. And I'm a doubt, even though Carolina has been hot of late, I'm still a doubter in terms of them being able to score consistently and continue their winning ways of late.
Well, they're making me look good with this little mini run since I had to mention them, but I don't know if I fully believe in them either. We'll see. But like, we all did agree about Carolina that if they ever got decent goaltending for a stretch, they would start to contend.
Yeah, and they beat the Islanders 4-3 yesterday, so that was a big game for them because that's one of the teams that they're chasing.
And Trump killed his team post-game, killed him.
Yeah, no, I caught the exchange that you were having on Twitter with a Carolina. I don't know if it's a Carolina fan.
Yes, it is. Doug Peters.
Yeah, and the thing was, it was about the defense situation with them. I mean, I'm of the opinion that right now, I mean, I know that Dundon has put them in an awkward position because he's come out publicly and say, yes, we need a scorer. So I think that puts Don Waddell in a situation where
Doug Abrams,
yeah, where Don Waddell doesn't have leverage when it comes to some of these deals because he knows that he's under the thumb of the ownership to say, okay, we need to go get a scorer. So it almost forces them in a way to make a deal, and that when you're sort of in an awkward position like that, you can never get the best value. Now I know Elliot Friedman, in his 31 Thoughts today, reiterated what he said on the weekend about Dougie Hamilton, about his potential availability, and says that the reason that he believes he's available is the fact that he is an offensive defenseman. The teams out there are looking for that, and he does believe that Carolina, if they got the score that they were looking for, that they would move him. But the question is, what level of scorer are they expecting? If it's if it's a terror, I mean, it's all your definition. It's all the definition of what Thomas Dundon thinks a sniper or a scorer is. If you're expecting to get Vladimir Tarasenko in a deal for Dougie Hamilton, then you're completely out of out of whack.
Alexander Semin was that guy, right? But that's a long time ago. So I don't know. And they once had him, right? I don't know. I don't know what it means. So I can't go there. What the real conversation was, though, was that maybe they're going to try and clear a spot for Adam Fox. But my answer was, you can't really do that. You could say that you're going to do it, but you shouldn't do it because it's really 50-50 on Fox. He could still go back to school and decide what he wants to do as a senior, or he could sign and not sign with you. And so those are the options for Adam Fox. And right now, there's no way of knowing if he, and I've asked everybody, I've asked people in the college hockey circuit. This is a closely guarded secret, which it has been for some really great players over the years, and it is for him as well. So there's no way of knowing, but I can tell you this: there are going to be other teams trying to get him. A lot of other teams.
And I can think of one right away. It's a team that desperately needs a defenseman or needs a couple defensemen. Yeah, and they'd be stupid if they didn't explore every option.
So he might explore his options, whether it's this year or next year. So if you're Carolina, you can't really clear a spot until you get an answer from him. Now, if you get an answer from him, you can make a deal over the summer. Then that's fine. But until then, you can't do that just for him. Still doesn't mean they won't make one. But getting back to the Islanders, so Trotz basically said his team threw this game away. I know Thomas wants to blame Thomas Greiss. Look, we don't like Thomas Greiss here. Only Eck does. And he needs to get his head examined as far as thinking Thomas Greiss is the better goalie.
Yeah.
But, go ahead.
No. Continue. I was just going to step away for like 2 seconds.
I thought you were. So, but with this one, like Trotz said, the Islanders are close. They're in a playoff hunt, and 2 points could decide the season. He goes, what if these are the 2 points? And he's 100% right. Like, the Islanders can't take teams for granted. They can't throw games away. And that's what he felt. And a lot of coaches don't get this honest. But Trotz feels like because he's the Stanley Cup winning coach that he is, he can get away with it. And so he's calling his guys to task. And I do find that as an effective tool. We'll see what happens with them next game now. But you very rarely see Barry Trotz with a scowl post-game. And he had a scowl, and he didn't like what he saw. And lately, the big bright spot for the Islanders is defenseman Devin Taves, and I've liked him since his college days. So I think he's there to stay. Brock Nelson scored twice. That is, again, going to be a big problem for the Islanders because half the fan base the fan base is split on Brock Nelson like they were on Kyle Okposo. And Okposo ended up leaving, and I think Nelson's going to end up leaving. But before he leaves, he's going to have 20-something goals this year. So he may price himself out for the Islanders keeping him because, yes, the Islanders have cap space, but Lou is cheap. And I don't know if Lou will give Brock Nelson market value. I don't think he will.
But this is the dilemma for the Islanders that Lou faced with Toronto. You're in the playoff race. You have a number of unrestricted free agents. Now, the Islanders don't have the Islanders do have similar circumstances with guys like Matthew Barzal, who they're going to sign to long-term deals, so they don't want to, re-up certain guys and lock up their money where they're going to have to probably pay Barzal in the $8 to $9 million range, on a long-term deal.
Yeah.
But if you're going to keep Brock Nelson, then you need to sign him. If you're not going to keep him, then even if you're in the playoff race, now Lamoriello didn't do this with Toronto. He kept Bozak, he kept Komarov, he kept JVR, even though I don't think they were serious Stanley Cup contenders last year. Does he keep Anders Lee? Does he keep Brock Nelson? Does he keep all? I don't think he'll keep Jordan Eberle.
I think he'll trade Eberle for somebody, but I think he's going to keep most of them. I do, because I think they're going to negotiate.
And that's risky. That is really risky for them.
I don't know. It's risky, man. And they're at a point now where if next year, let's say they lose Eberle and they lose Nelson and they sign Lee. Well, now you're probably going to get somebody in free agency. You might get two guys in free agency because everybody they picked up in free agency this year was a one-year deal. So next year they're going to have to sign guys to a little bit more term.
Except for Komarov. Komarov was 4 years.
Komarov, which again, that one that one will always. That's just Lou loving what he saw at a Komarov in Toronto and overpaying him, and that's fine. But yes, most of these guys will get term. They may have somebody who can come up in the ranks. That's fine. But they're going to need to have a really good plan here to fill a roster. Komarov is at this year 14 points. He's a plus 11. He's what does he make? $4 million?
$4 million.
I can't pay $4 million for that. I know he's greasy and everything, but $4 million is just too much for Leo Komarov.
I think they brought him in more for what he does off the ice and along with the team and help. He helped develop some of those players on the Leafs. He's one of those glue guys, and I understand that, but I would have never paid him the amount that they paid. But they had the freedom to do that because they struck out on Tavares and they knew that they would have money to spend. So I don't think he's going to finish off the balance of that deal. The thing is, he's under 35, so he could go to play with Joker or go back to the KHL and in a couple of years, and the last 2 years of the deal falls off. So that's a possibility.
Two things though, with Thomas saying that Barzal is going to get 8 years, $80 million, he will not. Lou will not offer him that. Ledecky will not pay that without the new arena. No way he's getting that deal. And Thomas is also wrong because Barzal will not have 100 points this year, and Barzal's scoring is down compared to last year. He's at 0.93 points a game. He was 1.04. I give him credit. 0.93 is really good without Tavares. But without Tavares, he's not getting 85 points again.
Yeah, he doesn't play Toronto every game, so
right.
He can't score a hat trick like he did there.
Right, he's not getting 85 points this year, so he's not getting $80 million. So will he get 7 years? Yeah, he probably gets 7. He probably will get like a $49 million deal for 7 years. That's probably what they'll offer Matt Barzal, and that's fine. I think they can deal with that. But the Islanders are still going to be just like the Flyers. They could take that step forward next year. Like if they make the playoffs, they could take that step forward. They could still take a step backwards. It is going to depend on who they can sign. Having Barry Trotz is great. Having a great goalie coach and Lou is great, but you still need players.
Canadians beat the Red Wings 3.
Wait, one more thing about that game. Sorry. So I talked about him a couple of weeks ago when I saw him. Sako Maenalainen, who's playing fourth line for Carolina. Big kid, big Finnish kid, 6'4", 207. He's got 2 points in 5 games. This guy's got a lot of grease to him, and he's a plus player, and he's giving them a little offense. He's part of this little bit of a resurgence. This is a good move by Carolina. I believe he was an unsigned free agent. He was a Nashville draft pick in 2013. So obviously they picked him up in a trade in a trade, I guess. He must have been somebody that was just hanging out in a trade. This is a good guy for them. Like this is, again.
Well, it's a good depth guy. I mean, you can always use, and I've always said to have size on that bottom, on that fourth line is always, if you can mix that with a little bit of skill, that's always a good thing. Montreal, Detroit, the Canadians win 3-2. As I read previously regarding the East, the Canadians are in the thick of it. They played Antti Niemi yesterday. He made 30 saves in the victory. Now, granted, it's Detroit, and I think Detroit's one of the worst teams in this league. So now they still can be challenging on the odd night, but for a team like Montreal, who is in the playoff race, this is the type of game that they have to win, and they barely did with the 3 goals. Let's see. Dallas wins 3-1 over the Blues. Dallas only gets 17 shots in that game, but score 3 goals to win. I wish we had Peter on the show because he could probably go into much more of a lengthy description of the Jets' win over the Avalanche. The Avalanche have struggled since before Christmas. Like I said yesterday,
they've hit a run.
Well, apparently, and I don't remember who said this, but apparently. The Islanders, when they played Colorado, they did an effective job of shutting down the top line of Rantanen and Landeskog and McKinnon. And basically every other team has mimicked what they did, and that is sort of corresponded with the struggles of the Avalanche. And I don't know if they're maybe thinking of splitting them up, but they've ridden the success of that line all year. So I would say
for a while. Why not?
Yeah, but I mean. It's never a good thing when you only have a few offensive weapons, and after those 3, they have a couple of decent players, but nobody of the skill of those 3. When you put all your eggs in one basket, if a team can shut that line down, then you're done. So
I mean, JT Compher's got 10 goals and 18 points, so he is starting to really emerge. I mean, he's still a young player. He's looking up his age now, 23.
Yeah.
So he's starting to come through, but you're right. They need a little bit more secondary scoring. That's what they're going to look for, to trade for sure. But right now, teams go through this. I'm not that worried about
them. The Golden Knights continue their hot pace over the New York Rangers, 4-2. I know that the big highlight from this game was the battle royale between Ryan Reeves and Adam McQuaid. I didn't see it.
Even a battle royale? I mean, it was a couple of shots from McQuaid, and then Reeves just took him down, man. Okay. I mean, Reeves right now is the guy. Nobody's really challenging him. McQuaid is getting older. Yes, he could still pack a punch. Again, if I'm the Rangers, like if this is the highlight of my game, then yes, get rid of everybody and start rebuilding because that's what they need to do. They're at the point now where you might as well start getting the assets. You don't want these guys to be hurt at the deadline, then all of a sudden you can't trade them. You're not going anywhere. They're not. You don't. I mean, to have McQuaid and Cody McLeod, playing at the same time sometimes, you don't need that.
Well, if I was the Rangers, I would trade McQuaid right now simply because
he's playing.
He's playing simply because you're right. He's healthy.
Trade him for a 5th round pick. Done.
Yeah. And the other, well, there's 2 other games. I'll save the Caps Philly game for last. The Sharks destroy, and I say that with glee, destroy the Edmonton Oilers 7-2. The bloom is off the rose, Russ. The Hitchcock bump.
Even a bloom, it was a quick bloom. You know how there's those plants that literally bloom for like 1 month out of the year? That's what the Edmonton Oilers were this year.
Is that a Venus flytrap?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's what they were this year. And now everybody, they're caught in the muck again. And Hitch is not getting them out of this. He's not. They don't have the personnel. They've had a couple of injuries, but they still don't have enough scoring. They don't rely enough on young players. They're working with a lot of retreads and some great players. The mix is bad. Like, what else can we say about this team? And I know I picked them for the playoffs, so they were a surefire pick to make them, but it's not going to happen.
And saying all that and saying all their struggles and saying the fact that they, without Clefbaum and they're they really don't have a great winger on that team unless they move a Draisaitl or Nugent Hopkins to the wing. They're at 43 points and they're 2 points out of a wild card. So they could very easily make the playoffs being the crappy team that they are.
Okay, but here's the thing. They are 43 points out. They're 2-8. They're 10-9 at home and 10-11 on the road. Mm-hmm. Those things, besides being a -18, do not bode well. Unless, this is the team that needs to trade for, that Chris Pronger. You know what I mean? Like, when the Flyers did that, it solidified them. That might solidify them, but, who is that you could trade? They would have to get, Alex Pietrangelo to solidify them. That's really what the Edmonton Oilers would have to do.
Yeah, but we know what the price for Pietrangelo would be. The price would be a Draisaitl or Nugent Hopkins.
It's the only thing that could save their season, and then somehow they would have to eke out, the scoring because – again, even with Connor McDavid there, I'm going to look him up. So they have 120 goals for. So Vancouver has more goals than them. Chicago has more goals than them. Minnesota's 1 goal behind, and they don't have a great offense. We know that. Just to give you an example, San Jose has 40 more goals. Vegas has 20 more goals. Calgary has 37 more goals. This is crazy.
And finally,
thanks.
Well, no, I couldn't argue with it. I mean, I think they're dreadful, but I thought they were dreadful from the beginning of the season. I didn't
want us to know the Mexican petunia blooms for a few hours each day. I don't even think the Oilers do that.
Is it as good as Mexican Coke?
Meaning the drink.
Not the one that you snort, the one that you drink. Thank you very much. And I'm diabetic, so I shouldn't even be doing either.
Coke is the kosher Coca-Cola that comes out at Passover every year. It's fantastic. Yeah.
Now, what is it? Say this again?
Yeah, the kosher Coca-Cola. You can go to your local supermarket and you could order it by the case if you want. And it's made differently, and it's real sugar, and that people order that as much as they order the Mexican Coke.
I had to try that because
it's good.
Okay, and the last game is the Caps and the Flyers, a 5-3 win for the Capitals. The Flyers at 40 shots.
The game was really not this close. Like, the Flyers scored a late goal at the end to make it 4-2, right? Because it ended 5-2. You said, yeah,
5-3.
5-3. Yeah, they made it 4-3 at one moment when they got a Jake Voracek goal with like 6 seconds to go. But so many things were bad about this game. I mean, Giroux did get a late goal. Voracek got that late one with the extra guy in the ice. So then they get a center ice face-off, and Voracek gets the puck stripped from him, and it's an empty net goal from TJ Oshie, his 200th, which is congrats to him. But it just shows this is where the Flyers team is at. They're always there for that last minute. We're going to try and pull this game out. They can't. What I really noticed in this game, and I didn't watch the whole game, first thing was I heard Mike McKenna, and I didn't see it, but I heard he gave up a goal on his first shot. And unfortunately, Mike McKenna with that black mask looks like the masked marauder, the guy that Bugs Bunny wrestled way back when. And, Mike McKenna's not going to be on the Flyers very long. We know that. And so I feel bad. And he's like a below average goalie, but he's a big goalie. And at least Carter Hart didn't play this game, and that was smart. I give the Flyers credit for that, because that would have been ugly for him, because the team essentially just lost all of its energy midway in the game. And the second period, I think Capitals scored like 4 goals. Jacob Verana, they couldn't cover him. Nobody could cover him. Konechny was trying, and James Van Riemsdyk was just standing around waiting for Konechny to feed him the puck so he can get a shot on net. So, Van Riemsdyk is not creating anything. It's just – and this is a game where Voracek had 3 points. Big deal. They still lose, right? So it's sort of like an empty 3 points. Things are really bad. They're bad to the point where I would send Hart back, let him have one more start, send him back, bring up Myers, bring up Friedman, trade McDonald because you're not playing him already, or just bury McDonald forever, whatever you want to do, and start making moves to see what you have in the organization, start making trades, because this team is done. This team may very well get Jack Hughes, and they didn't start out the year hoping to do that.
Yeah, and I know that I believe I heard that McKenna starting yesterday set an NHL record for the most goaltenders used by one team in one season. Yeah. So that's 7. Can we name the 7?
Yeah, because
Neuwirth,
Elliott,
Pickard,
Stallars,
Lyon,
Hart,
McKenna.
Yeah, we could do it.
Yeah, we can do it.
It's the next one. We don't know who it's going to be, because they're probably going to have 8 before the season's over. We just don't know who the next one will be like.
Okay, just a couple notes here, and then we'll take some questions. First, I found it interesting. After going 1 for 15 in their last, I believe, 7 games, the vaunted Toronto power play, and I think it's 4 for the last 34. And remember, this was a power play that everybody thought, and at a certain point, it was tops in the league. It was really operating at a ridiculous pace. But the one question was having all 3 centers, the top 3 centers, Kadri, Matthews, Tavares, on one unit.
Yeah.
And that always made them vulnerable the next shift after the power play if they didn't score, because they would have to put the 4th line out or put a winger. Right. Like
the best defensive player is not there.
Right. They ended up having, what they've been doing most of the time is putting out a line with Patrick Marleau centering after the power play. Now, Mike Babcock, since the power play has struggled, he has gone back to what's close to the lineup from last year. Now, obviously, Van Riemsdyk is not there to be the net front presence, but they moved Matthews off the top power play and put him on the second power play with Nylander and Marlowe and Janssen and Gardner, and Kasperi Kapanen replaces Matthews on the top power play. Now, this is the thing, Russ. I was always skeptical of them keeping this unit together, and there was a lot of talk before the season that one of the things discussed by Babcock and Matthews when Babcock made that trip to Arizona after the playoff loss was Matthews saying, "I want to be on the first power play." I've always thought that he was just waiting for the opportunity to move him off of it, and now he has his opportunity.
Yeah, and that's fair. One of the guys in the chat room said, because we were talking about the Flyers, that Shanahan turned around the Leafs in pretty short order. Well, getting Matthews helped. Signing Mike Babcock to a bag load of money helped. Not everybody can do that. I mean, those two things happening would help any franchise turn around, to be honest.
And you got to remember that Shanahan came in the year of 2014, 2015, asking the MLS&E board to say, let's strip this down. Let's tank. And they said no. They said, they were close to making the playoffs the previous year. They had a and Randy Carlisle, they had just extended. So they said, no, let's keep going. And after the salute gate and everything else in early January or February, I believe, they decided, okay, let's go. So they actually had 2 years of tanking.
Right.
They got Marner out of one and Matthews out of the other. That's hitting 2 Grand Slam home runs in extra innings.
And that's the only reason it did that. I can't give Shanahan full credit, but I definitely give him credit.
Oh, yeah.
But he doesn't get full credit because luck had something to do with it.
Luck had a lot to do with it, but I give him credit for going down the road that
in position to be lucky.
Right. He wasn't at the mercy of the ownership like John Ferguson Jr. wasn't. He didn't misuse the power that he had like Brian Burke. Brian Burke had every opportunity to tank and decided to take a shortcut and trade for Phil Kessel. Shanahan realized the way that you needed to turn that team around for a long-term run is to get franchise players as young players in the draft, and nobody had the will and had the ability to convince the MLS&E board to do that. Now, speaking of Burke, go ahead.
Not Burke yet. We're not ready for that yet. Looking at the Leafs, 2 things that I noticed. When you talked about the power play, I would put Ron Hainsey on there just to see if a shot on the net would do something, because then maybe it would help Riley, like we said. But the other thing is that you can't fix is Patrick Marlowe is not the same player as last year. He's not even close.
I disagree with that. I mean, I'm not saying
he's not getting 27 goals this year. He's not getting 17.
He's on pace for 20.
Yeah, he's on pace for 20, but not 27. He's not getting 47 points. He's going to get 40. And then what are you going to get him in the playoffs? I think he's slowing down. And I think that's something else that is hurting the Leafs, because I think they expected that to happen next year, and it's happening a little earlier than they expected.
See, I think one thing that's affected him is the fact that he's been yo-yoed around from different line to different line constantly. He's been moved. He can adapt quickly because he's an experienced guy, but he's been on Matthews' line one day, Kadri's line the next, Tavares' line the next.
Minus now, he was a plus last year. I think that explains his plus minus, but I still wouldn't say it explains his goals. He's still playing with good enough players where he should be able to score goals.
Yeah. As for I'm never surprised by what Brian Burke says, and in some instances I agree with his critique and his evaluation of the Leafs, and he's been pretty consistent over the last month or so in saying that the Leafs don't have enough. I would say they don't have enough size. They don't have enough heavy players, as Babcock would say. Babcock came out after the loss to the Predators and said, we don't have enough heavy players, or we don't play heavy. And I'm like, well, the reason that you don't play heavy is because you don't have heavy players. Because, right now, one of the few guys who plays that way is Zach Hyman. Zach Hyman's been out of the lineup. They really can't dump the puck into the offensive zone, but who's going to go into the corner and win that battle? Now, I think Burke is also talking about throwback players and aggressiveness and hitting and fighting and that as well. But I also think he's right in the sense of they don't really have players. They They have a lot of skill, and they're short on, I think, sandpaper and feistiness that you need, especially in the playoffs. And that's why, unless they make major moves, I don't know whether they can be Boston or not.
Well, I'll disagree because I think really if you get those sandpaper guys, they still have to be able to do something. Penalty kill, score goals, do something else. You can't simply be a sandpaper guy who forechecks great and punches the lights out of somebody once in a while. You got to do more.
No, it's got to be a top 9 forward.
Yeah.
Or it can't be a fourth line guy.
Right.
It can't be a better version of Cody McLeod. It's got to be somebody like a Wayne Simmons who's in the top.
Why not turn Zach Hyman into that guy? Why can't he be a little tougher? He's a big enough guy. Like you,
he doesn't shy away from it.
No, that's what I'm saying. So why not turn it up for him? You know what I mean? Like if this were EA Sports, and
there's only one guy. That's the thing. There's only one guy who does that. That's the problem.
Well,
you need more. You need more than that. You need more than Zach Hyman.
But what I was going to say is like Washington has Devontae Smith-Pelly, but he will still score clutch goals and has the ability to. Finding this guy is hard. That's the problem. And usually you end up having to draft this guy like Washington did with Tom Wilson.
Right.
So finding this guy on the open market is hard.
But the thing is, they have Smith-Pelly, they have Wilson, they have other guys. Like last year, they had Beagle, they had other guys on top of
guys now. Now they literally just have Wilson and Smith-Pelly.
Right, but that might be enough. Maybe they'll go out at the deadline and get somebody else. Who do
you want to get? You want to get Matt Martin back?
No, but that's the thing. I'm not talking about a fourth line enforcer. I'm talking about a top 9 guy.
Tell me who you want back. Who you want to get?
I want Wayne Simmons.
Yeah, Wayne Simmons, and they might be able to get him.
I mean, and if not that, and I know that I don't believe he's anything more than a fourth liner with Minnesota. I mean, I like Marcus. I like Marcus Foligno. Marcus Foligno. Now he may not be a fourth line. He may be a fourth line guy, but I think a Kyle Clifford from LA, that type of player.
Yeah.
Is somebody I think that they could use. But, I mean, that's going to be responsibility number 2 on their wish list. It's the number 1 is still going to be the defenseman.
Yeah, no question about it. I think I don't know who they're really going to get. Now, they could do something. See, I would think if there's a defenseman out there who you can maybe have play forward or something like that, I can't even come up with a guy. Like, the one thing, and I've been discussing this, and we know that his name has been floated around in trade possibilities, which is Gudas. Apparently, Gudas is very liked by the analytics community, and we know that he's liked by those who are more eyesight evaluators because in terms of what the Leafs are looking for, he would give them toughness. He would give them, apparently his possession numbers are good. I mean, so it would satisfy both. I don't think the Flyers are trading him. I really
don't. That's the thing.
Now that they're on their toughness kick, they're not going to trade him, I don't think.
Right. So that's why, when somebody was suggesting Adam McQuaid, I'm like, no, because
Petrovic would have been a good pickup for him, and they didn't pick him up.
Agreed.
So your GM doesn't feel the same way as you, or he just doesn't like Petrovic.
Right, or he didn't want to pay a third-round pick for Petrovic.
Well, all right, so here's the bigger question. Does Dubas think what Brian Burke does? I don't think he does.
He may not, but the thing is, if he wants to go to war with his head coach, because his head coach will come out after the season if they lose.
But what's going to happen.
I know, but I'm just saying, Russ. I mean that's the reality here. Is he's got to provide his head coach with the players that he believes that he needs to win. And if he doesn't do that, then he takes on the responsibility of not. That there's going to be a verbal war. There hasn't been yet. There's been sort of every once in a while, Babcock will say, "Oh, I get along well with Kyle. We talk things over. We'll debate things, blah blah blah." Yeah, it's one thing to talk and debate. It's another thing to act on it and to get the players that the coach needs. And I'm telling you right now, the coach. He won't say anything publicly right now, but as you get closer to February 25th, like he did last year, he begged for a fourth line center in press conference after press conference.
All right, here's who the chat room has come up for you. Troy Brouwer, Bortuzzo, Haley. Like none of those guys.
Haley. I mean, first of all, isn't Haley still in the? He was suspended for, I think it was under the substance abuse.
Yeah, and Rob not tough enough. Like none of these guys are going to help. Simmons would be the guy, and Simmons is going to cost them a lot.
Now, Troy Brower, it was somebody I had on my list of, cheap acquisitions, veteran guys who could be in your top 9, maybe in the top 12. That would be a quick fix type of thing, a depth forward with experience. But you're not going to give up a ton for that. That's the thing. You're only going to give up maybe a 4th or 5th round pick.
And you're not going to get a lot out of them. Simmons would be the fix. But what's interesting is I'm hearing rumblings that the Flyers may have gone back to Simmons one more time post-Hextall to see if they can get him to stay. And I think that's maybe why he's still there.
Yeah.
I mean, the Leafs are heavily scouting him. But, again, you tell me right now, what are you giving for Wayne Simmons? I'm Fletcher. I called you.
Well, I mean, I don't think that the Leafs are giving up a first.
Not like Pep call Cliff beforehand to offer him like coupons for Canadian Tire or anything. None of that's going to happen.
No S&H green stamps.
Right.
I don't think that the Leafs would trade their first round pick in a deal for Simmons, because I think that's going to be one of the main pieces in a deal for the defenseman. I mean, I don't think they're giving up Kasperi Kapanen. I don't think they're giving up Andreas Janssen. I mean, I don't know what I don't know what.
Then.
Right. That's the thing. It's like, I don't know. I mean, first of all, I don't know what the price that Philadelphia is.
Definitely be like a first and a prospect, or a Kapanen and like a second and a third. Like that's going to be the price.
According to Craig Custance, the sources inside the Leaf organization say they're not trading Kapanen.
Right.
Now, that might mean that eventually they're trading.
They trade Nylander. They would do that straight up.
Would they trade Nylander for Simmons?
And Leafs would get a pick out of it.
Well, I mean, but unless Simmons, well, then it's basically the Leafs are taking on the Flyers situation and saying let's get Simmons signed on a contract. If they could get Simmons signed on a contract.
What if the Flyers give you a first next year and Simmons for Nylander?
If you're asking me, if I was general manager, I would do that.
Right. Now, they might do that.
Yeah. I mean,
that may be the deal.
Yeah. All right, let's take some questions.
Okay. Questions. Actually, there was a funny question in here. Let me find that one. All right. Matthew says, question for the panel. I don't know if 2 people make up a panel, but we'll answer it anyhow. Is Voracek tradable, and what could they realistically get for Raffl and Gudas? Okay. Voracek is not tradable. That contract is not tradable, and Comcast is not going to eat a lot of money on his contract. So you'll see Jake Voracek next year and the year after, and then we'll see maybe he'll go to Seattle. That's a guy who could go to Seattle. So that's one thing. The next one is Raffl. Raffl could be traded, but I think he's got 1 more year left, I think.
I'll check.
If he's got a year left, they may keep him, because they had a big uptick in offense and in defensive play when Raffl came back from being sick.
Raffl is a UFA.
All right, so they'll trade Raffl. They'll trade him. What can you get for him? A 3rd round pick. That's what you get for Michael Raffl.
I think for Gudas, you're probably shooting at a 2nd round pick, because he's got term left. He's got another year.
Well, if Kimmo Timonen got 2 seconds on one leg, I think you might be able to get a 2nd and like a 6th or a 7th.
Yeah, okay. I was going to say, don't say a 2nd and a prospect, because
No. But I think that's what you can get. So I think realistically, that's what you're looking at. I know that's not what you're hoping. So Simmons is your best trade chip. He is. That's the one that you've got to get a lot with. All right. Let's see. If the Wild don't make the playoffs, is Bruce Boudreau done? Yes, I believe so. Even though when I picked the Wild to go as far as they did, I did it with Dumba in the lineup. Losing Dumba is like any team losing their number 1 defenseman. So this is a hard thing for teams to overcome. So if all of a sudden the Wild don't make the playoffs, I'm not going to feel bad that I picked them to make it, because, again, take out Morgan Riley from the Leafs, they would lose some games. take out Chara for the rest of the season for the Bruins, they would lose some games, or McAvoy for the rest of the season. Take your pick. It's probably more. It's probably worse if McAvoy's out for the season. So yeah, this is a big loss for them. But I still think Boudreau will be done. I do.
Yeah, and based on what I read in Elliot Friedman's 31 Thoughts, the same may go for Randy Carlyle if Anaheim misses the playoffs. Now they've had a lot of injuries. The Gibson has been under siege for most of the year. They're still in the race, and Bob Murray doesn't want to fire Carlyle during the year. But if they miss the playoffs, I think he's going to be in deep trouble too.
Yeah, it is worthy of pointing out. Drew pointed out, and I've forgotten that this was said the other day, that we know the Flyers tied the record. We know they're going to get 8 in there. Flyers will get 8 goalies, so they're going to break the record. But Scott Gordon was the 7th used by the Nordiques in '89 because he was a goalie.
Okay.
So there's some irony there. All right. I do like that Matt is completely delusional and thinks they'll get Hughes and Quenneville, and it's like, yeah, okay. I think you have a better chance of going on vacation with Gritty, Matt. I'm just saying. Steve did have the idea of maybe you put Dermott on the power play, and he's right. Dermott does have a great shot. That is an option.
The problem is the Leafs don't use 2 defensemen on the power play. I don't think they will. I don't think they're overloaded with talented forwards, and I think Dermott is capable of playing the power play. He played power play for the Marlies, but they're not going to use Hainsey because Hainsey's terrible offensively now.
Steve is banished from the show because he brought up Tomas Cabriolet. Like nobody should ever bring him up.
That's a drink. That used to be a drinking game back in the day. Whenever I mentioned trading Tomas Cabriolet, it was a act had to drink a shot of Bailey's on the rocks.
That's true. Let's see. I'm looking. All right. So Esmir says, I would look at Blake Coleman from New Jersey, but Shiro isn't trading him. I agree. I don't think Shiro will trade Blake Coleman, so I don't think the Leafs will get him.
Yeah, no. When it comes to players who are, the type of players that I'm talking about,
Carter for the Devils, they utilize those guys.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, I remember. What I'm saying though is regarding those players that the Leafs could add as character guys, as a little more gritty guys. These are guys that they want to get on the cheap. These are guys that maybe they take salary back, that they can trade a mid-round pick for, even if the player's got a little hefty salary. I think that's the move they make rather than having to give up more in a deal for that type of player.
Yeah. We're being asked, what could Lou get for Eberle? Esmir says a second rounder at best. No, I think they could get a player, and they might be able to get a young player that's not fitting in an organization that has some talent, somebody who's in the AHL, like as an example.
Yeah. How about Josh Hosang?
No, he's playing now. But what if you traded with the Capitals and you said, hey, give us Riley Barber, a guy who's really never been able to crack the lineup, who has some talent? That's a Lou kind of player.
Or if Vancouver was in the playoff race, how about Nikolai Goldobin?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Or go to St. Louis, ask him for Ivan Barbashev. Maybe Eberle sign only if Eberle has an idea of he would sign with St. Louis for next year, because Barbashev's on the 4th line. He's being wasted there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, those are the kinds of things where you could maybe make a trade. Steve said Cabriolet's his favorite Leaf ever. Wow.
Steve, you've been lobotomized.
Wow. Randy wants to know, are the Leafs staying with Sparks? Yeah, because the GM.
No. Well, I mean, okay.
Not as a number one. Anderson's coming back Saturday.
He's still concussed. He's still concussed.
Oh, he is still concussed. Okay.
Yeah, no, and he's barely practiced. So Anderson, the report today is Anderson will make his return against Boston on Saturday.
You don't even listen to me.
Which means Hutchinson is going to play on Thursday against New Jersey. But Sparks, until he's healthy, it's going to be Anderson and Hutchinson.
Drew's favorite Leaf was Felix Potvin. I will admit, I liked Felix Potvin. I think he had personality. I took a picture with. They had at the Hall of Fame, the first time I ever went there, they had a team picture, and I guess Potvin was on the Kings, right?
Yeah, he was.
And so I took a picture, and I was putting my arm around Felix Potvin in the picture just to be a goofball.
Yeah, it's fun.
Character, he did.
Felix Potvin at the Centennial Classic. I was in the Leaf, the not the throwback team, but the All-Star, the All-Star Classic that they had with Wendell and Gilmore, and Felix Potvin was wearing a very disturbing, like, porn mustache. It was
I remember that.
Yeah, but he's, very good guy, and I know a lot of people who love him as a goaltender, and they came the closest to getting to a Stanley Cup final with him in net. So,
all right, we got 2 more questions, and then I got one statement, and then we're done. Okay. Matt Ross wants to know: have you guys heard of any teams interested in Nyquist? No, but I'm sure they are. Yeah. And Nyquist will have value. Right now, he's having a great year. Nyquist, you won't get a first for, but you can get a really good prospect for him. And I think
second in the prospect.
Yeah, second in the prospect would be good, or just a really highfalutin prospect, which either way I think is good.
Sure.
The other question was, I just lost it. Okay, from Ski. Russ, we know the Blues would be foolish trading Tarasenko, Parayko, or Peter Angelo, but which players on that team would you trade away? I would trade Brayden Schenn.
Patrick Maroon.
I would trade Patrick Maroon, and honestly, I would trade Ryan O'Reilly because
you're not going to. So.
I know you can't because he's untradeable. But I'm telling you right now, he has never gone to a team and made them a winner. And losing Stastny, gaining O'Reilly, that hurt the Blues. It didn't help.
No, it didn't. I would trade Bouwmeester if you can get anything for him.
Bouwmeester, there's not much left there, but somebody will take Jay Bouwmeester as a depth defenseman. Those are the guys. And Jake Allen, if there's any kind of market, trade him.
Yeah, I might trade Alex Steen because I think he's seen his better day. He's still a good quality player.
They might hold on to him, but
I think he's got a few years left in that contract. And
yeah, my one statement is thumbs up to Adidas, because even though Mike hates the All-Star Game jerseys are made with another company, and this company gets marine plastic from the oceans, and they're recycling that plastic that we all see and hear about and turning them into jerseys, because Adidas has a program where they turn the plastic waste in the oceans into sneakers, and now they're doing it into these all-star jerseys, and that's great.
That's great. And thumbs down on the Philadelphia Flyers classic, outdoor classic.
I was trying to save it for Eck. The chat room wanted to know about it.
Oh my God! What a freaking abomination that thing is! It's like
you get thumbs down.
It looks like a practice jersey. It's like a two-tone.
I think Gritty will look good in it. The team will look bad in it.
Yeah, do me a favor. Get the Goodyear blimp and drop Gritty from it right in the middle of the ice.
Okay. Ended there.
On that uplifting note, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thank you for watching the Hockey Buzzcast, and we'll be back tomorrow. Remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.